All right, guys, so this is the second video for the Unit 1.1 Foundation of the Government slideshow. This is a slide that we ended on in the last video, sovereignty. We talked about sovereignty means that the government doesn't answer to anybody. We talked about popular sovereignty, which means the government answers to that population of people. So in theory and hope, we are a country ruled by popular sovereignty because the government should be answering to us in theory. So, moving on, essential features of a state or a country. You need a population. Without people, government has no reason to exist. So there are no countries out there where there's just a government with no people to rule or help. Territory, there has to be some kind of geopolitical boundary that is universally recognized, and these can change or cause conflict. So if we look at the United States starting out. If we look at the American Revolution, we only had those original 13 colonies, right? And then as time progressed, our political boundaries got bigger and bigger until we had all lower 48 states and Hawaii and Alaska. So that's our territory, and it's universally recognized by every other country in the world. Sovereignty, supreme and absolute authority. You can't be a country or a state if you are ruled by somebody else. That just makes you a small state, little s. And then government, somebody has to be in charge. So if you're going to have a country, it has to have a government in place. If you are in anarchy, you're also not a country. So just because you don't have a government and there's free reign and woo, you're not a country at that point. All right, there are political theories that we need to talk about to kind of explain how the United States has progressed over time. The first being evolutionary theory. That's the political theory of evolution. If you want to talk about the other evolutionary theories, you got to go over to the science department and talk to them about it if they're even allowed to. We're not going to get into it. So the evolutionary theory of politics is that government basically evolved out of the household. So you had a bunch of these really independent households before governments were even really a thing, where say you had like the dad, the father figure was the head of the household, and he was the leader. And the older the person was, the more authority that they had. And they were the ones that made the decisions for the rest of the family. And that's the same way that government operates today. You have somebody that we elect to the head of the household or to the head of the country, and they're the ones that make the decision. So we have evolved from the household to having a large government. Force theory. Force theory states that when countries and governments emerge, people need to cooperate to survive, but only become organized when someone took charge or used force to take charge. Force theory thinks that people have to be brought together by the threat of violence. So we know that if we don't pay our taxes, or if we kill somebody else, or if we wreck our car, or if we steal a bunch of money, that we're going to go to jail, and that there's a threat of violence implied there. So like if you kill somebody, there's a chance that the country could kill you, right? We have the death penalty in the United States. And that's one of the things that deter us from committing those crimes. That's force theory. If I do something wrong, the government can do something bad to me. That's force theory. So I'm not going to act bad so that the government can't do anything to me. Divine right. Divine right believes that certain people are chosen by God to lead their people. Many cultures believe that these leaders were once gods. If you go back to the ancient Asian dynasties in Japan and China and places like that, if you go to some Middle Eastern countries, even a couple of European countries before the Enlightenment, all believe that God chose these people to lead the countries. And that, if you follow that theory, that would mean that the country, the state, exists to do the work of that God. And the way people were able to kind of wrap this in force theory was that if you oppose the government, then you oppose God, and you were a traitor, a heathen, or a heretic, and you could be put to death for that. So that's kind of how the government kept people under their thumb using the divine right theory. Social contract theory, we're talking about Hobbes again, and this is the belief that the state exists to protect and serve its people. And if the people are obedient, the government will do what it can to protect them. And that's Hobbes. Social contract, Hobbes. We talked about this. Social contract, Hobbes. Economic systems. Economics, it's a study of how people and nations use their limited resource to satisfy wants and needs. People in government have to produce something in order to be part of an economy. So, like, you may not think about it right now, but if you have a job at McDonald's, you're part of the economy because you're producing something. You're not just producing hamburgers and fries and milkshakes, assuming that the ice cream machine's working, but you're also providing a service. You're providing customer service to another people. People are coming to McDonald's to pay you money for service. That you're going to hand them their food and that you're going to make sure that they're all right and that you're going to make their food and it's going to be fresh and tasty and everything else. You're producing something. You're part of the economy. Even if you're working a very menial job, you're part of the economy. If you're cleaning out horse stables, nothing wrong with that. You're providing a service. Somebody's going to give you money to clean out stables, and then you're going to go spend that money someplace else, or you're going to put it in a bank. Both of those things contribute to the economy. There are several factors to production in economies. These are the 7 altogether. You have to have producers, people that make the things. You have to have distributors, people who actually hand the product to the consumer. You have to have a consumer, someone who's going to use the product. McDonald's wouldn't exist if people didn't eat hamburgers. You have to have people to do the work, or labor, so McDonald's can't operate without the dude flipping the patties in the back. You have to have resources. No cows, no burgers, then you don't have McDonald's, right? You need capital, money or resources necessary to actually purchase those means of production. If McDonald's is negative $1 billion in their bank account, then they won't be able to pay you, and then McDonald's won't be able to be open, right? They'll go bankrupt. And then finally, entrepreneurship, which is the person willing to take the risk to combine all those other factors of production and make money off of them. So your district manager, general manager, your franchisee at a McDonald's, they're an entrepreneur because they're taking that risk. And each of these factors, all 6 of them, play an equally important role. If one of them is out of balance, then the economy of that business will collapse. You have enough businesses collapse, and then your whole national economy is going to collapse. Look back at 2008 in the United States. A bunch of factors of production were out of whack, and certain businesses were being very predatory to consumers, and the economy collapsed. That's a problem. Capitalism. Capitalism as a form of economy. There's an emphasis on private ownership, which means I own what I own, and you own what you own, and we don't have to share it. There's freedom of choice. There's individual incentives. And those apply to all factors: the laborers, the entrepreneurs, the investors, the consumers. I have, in a capitalist society, I have the incentive as a laborer to work as many hours as I can because I want to make as much money as I can. That's my incentive. I'm getting paid. Your incentive for going to work, my incentive for coming to work, at least partly, is because I'm going to make a living, right? I'm going to be able to pay my bills, pay my rent, pay my mortgage, pay for groceries, pay for the lights to be on. That's the incentive. In free market capitalism, the government's not even involved in the economy. And we'll talk about our economic model here in a minute once we're done with capitalism. Capitalism is pure competition, 100%. So the United States has what's known as a mixed economy, which means that we have capitalism and socialism, and we're going to bring those two things together. And the bad word right now is socialism, right? Like, a bunch of people in the government are socialists because they want the government to be involved in things. Not necessarily what they mean. The United States is not going to turn into a socialist government anytime soon. But we do steal certain things from socialism, and we make them work for us. So in this mixed economy, there are individuals, like, you have the opportunity to go work wherever you want. And assuming that you're over the age of 18, you can work as many hours as you want. If you want to work a job pouring concrete and you want to work 95 hours a week, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you can. And you can make a butt ton of money doing it. But in a mixed economy, we have rules in place to protect people. So if you're working at McDonald's right now and you're under the age of 18, there are certain laws that govern you saying, hey, you can't work more than 40 hours a week. Hey, you can't work past 11 o'clock on a school night. Hey, you can't operate certain machinery because you're a minor and you would get hurt and it would be a big problem. That's the government stepping in and making sure that people are not abused by the people who own the factors of production. So we're taking a little bit of that socialism, we're getting the government involved, they're making sure people are safe, they're making sure businesses are doing the right things. But you still have that opportunity. If you want to go start up any kind of business you want, you can. If you want to open up a lemonade stand on the side of the road, you can do that. That's cool, as long as you're permitted, because the government wants your money for permits. Socialism. So if we tone it down a notch and go straight back to straight socialism, this is an economic system where the government plays a significant role in the economy, but doesn't completely control it yet. That's communism. We'll get to it in a second. Government planners map out this use of resources, they distribute products, they help distribute wages, and socialist societies typically hand out extensive social services and assistance packages. What that means is that if you're unemployed or if you are disabled in some way, like you've been hurt and you lost a leg in an accident and now you can't work your job, the government's going to help you get back to a place where you can provide for yourself. Hopefully, the hope is that you don't have someone just living off of government assistance if they can help it, because you want people to be active members in your economy. There's more money going around that way. There's more security that way. But the government is there to help you if things turn bad. Now, in a socialist society, that's more assistance. In the United States, like we have Medicare, Medicaid, disability, Social Security, things like that. And like a certain amount of your paycheck each week goes towards those services. In a purely socialist society, that percentage of your paycheck goes way up, but you get more stuff from the government. But there's this trade-off of, well, would I rather keep my money or would I want the government to give me stuff with my own money? And a lot of people say, "Ooh, socialism is bad because just give me all of my money." I reserve judgment on socialism, communism, capitalism, whatever. I think the government system or the economic system in the United States of a mixed economy is probably the best bet we're going to have for a while. Democratic socialism, it's basically a belief that you throw democracy in with socialism and the economy and the government kind of come together to make one big unit. You got Bernie Sanders. He ran in 2016 against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic primary. He's up again in 2020 to try and win the presidency away from Donald Trump. A lot of people are scared by democratic socialism, and Bernie claims that he's a democratic socialist, and that's going to scare a lot of voters away from him because socialism is kind of a bad word in government right now. It's basically because the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and individual choice or individual incentive gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Your rights are still respected, but the government's going to use more of your money to do more things for everybody. So you have to kind of make that decision of, do I want my taxes to go towards a bunch of other people, or would I rather save more of my own money for myself? Fair question. Communism, that's a command economy. Government owns everything. Government owns every mean of production. The government tells you where you're going to work. So say you're super smart, say you're super good at making shoes, doesn't matter. You might be the new mailman. And the guy who'd have been really good at being the mailman is making shoes. But the government tells you what to do. This guy, Karl Marx, funny beard, funny mustache, spoke of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Bourgeoisie are the owners and capitalists. The proletariat are the laborers. And basically he believed that eventually there would be such an imbalance between who owned production and the people down here working it, and that these people would be so abused by these people up here that eventually there'd be a revolution and boom, communism. They would have to have the government control everything. We're going to stop here before we start talking about the Declaration of Independence, because we're starting to get into our historic documents. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Can't pause my video. It makes me sad.